Thank you for watching Conscious Consumer Network. The live stream broadcast is free to view. You can pause and rewind live broadcasts to catch up, or view shows at a later date by accessing our free archives of all shows. Check out our broadcast guide to see what's on. You can show your support by donating to our network support fund. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or subscribe to the monthly newsletter for updates. We thank you for supporting free and independent media.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mel V, coming to you live from Conscious Consumer Network's headquarters here in sunny Portugal. It is an honor and a privilege to be with you all again this evening for a very, very special edition of Stop South African Genocide. As always, I have my wonderful co-host Karin Smith joining me for this amazing interview of the Khoi San King, His Royal Highness Goab Cornelius III. And we are just absolutely in such a great space this evening as we will be talking about some interesting information with regards to, let's suggest we get into it. First, I'm going to say, Karin, please join in with us and share a little bit of yours.
Good evening, Mel. Good evening, King Cornelius. It's an absolute honor and a pleasure to have you here. I was very honored to interview King Cornelius last week on my radio show, and it is a fabulous thing. As Mel said earlier, I have never interviewed a king before, and it's the most daunting prospect in a lot of ways, because we don't know the correct protocols, never having been there. So if we step out of line, please forgive us, because we don't know any better. As Jesus said, please forgive them, they know not what they do. Well, that applies to us today, because we are doing our best to follow protocol and be polite, but I've never done this before. It's just such a huge honor. The king comes from a very, very long line of African peoples who were the first nation of South Africa. And it is a very hard thing for his people, because neither under white rule nor under the current ANC rule have they been acknowledged even as a people, never mind as the first peoples. They are not even acknowledged as people. So as the king said to me recently, we are invisible. Now, Donald Trump spoke about the forgotten people of America, which is basically the people in flyover country where nobody goes. I know that because I live in a tiny village in Texas, where even Texans don't know that this village exists. So I understand being flown over. But can you imagine being forgotten, totally invisible, unnoticed, uncared about, left on the garbage heap of civilization? It must be the most terrible thing for a people, and never mind for their king, who everybody looks to for guidance, for comfort, for help in their times of need. This king is in a place where I cannot believe royalty ever has been before or is in this year of 2017. And Mel will be asking the questions today. Mel will be finding out why their people are there and what we can do to help, because it must be a terrible, terrible thing for a race of people whose language, culture, antecedents, history, and themselves who are alive today don't exist in the eyes of the world.
Yes, indeed. Very well put. Thank you, Karin. And I just wanted to say that King Cornelius, first off, is the king of the original peoples of Southern Africa, being the people who were there before the European colonialists arrived on the continent of Africa. And therefore, he is the true and rightful sovereign of Southern Africa. King Cornelius, if you wouldn't mind just explaining to us sort of where your sovereignty lies and what areas you're sort of the sovereign of.
Hi to us. Firstly, I must greet you. In my mother tongue, it says good evening or good day. Thank you for having me. Very important question. Many people ask, where does the Khoi San people originate from? And I said, the only people that roamed the plains of Southern Africa, was the Bushmen, as they are known in the world as the Bushmen. And they started bartering cattle and fat-tailed sheep with China and Egypt. Some of them ate more meat than the others, and some of them drank more milk than the others. And the children that was born from them were bigger and stronger. And they called themselves Khoi Khoi, men of men. And they are the ancestral relatives of the Aboriginal people. Now, we had no name because we were just the people. When the colonials came in the very beginning, they asked us, now, who are you? I said, I'm Khoi Khoi, because I'm men of men. And the people in the bush, they said, oh, that's the Bushmen, the Bossemane. And then the Dutch, Jan van Riebeeck says, no, you'll be called the Hottentots and the Bushmen. And people throughout the whole world study about the Hottentot and Bushmen because that's how they are known. And then one of the elders will ask, now where is, some were given the name Khoi San eventually. And one of the elders coming to your question, they asked her, where is Khoi San land? And she said, from the Orange River to Cape Point, from the Atlantic Ocean to the Indian Ocean, and they said, the whole South Africa. She said, absolutely. So the land doesn't belong to us. We need to make that very clear. The land doesn't belong to us. We belong to the land. And you cannot separate us from the land. The land was given to us by God, and we need to be custodians of the land. And this is why we are saying this. They normally ask me, when I went to Europe for the first time, they says, who are you? Where are you from? I said, I'm an African, very proud. Which part? I'm a South African. And what's your nationality? I said, I'm Khoi. I'm First Nation, indigenous to the land. But they asked what my nationality was very softly, because they didn't know how to identify me. So as the Aboriginal people of the land, we had no name. All our names was given to us, like, for example, Hottentot and Bushman. The English came along and says, now who are you? We said, Hottentot and Bushman. He says, no, you're non-Europeans. Then the Freebirders came along and says, now who are you? We said, non-European. He says, no, you're non-white. Then apartheid came along and says, now who are you? We said, non-white. He says, no, you're colored. When democracy came along, we're supposed to be given back our true identity, and we weren't. So we are a people that's been named by everybody else, but never given our true name as Aboriginal people.
All right. Well, I'd like to just point out that you're not Aboriginal, because if you look at the word ab, for example, abnormal means it's not normal. You're actually the original people.
Absolutely.
Of Southern Africa.
Absolutely, the original people.
The original peoples, and therefore you are the rightful sovereign and king of Southern Africa. Is that not correct?
Yes, it is. I am fortunate that I am the firstborn child for 16 generations dating back till 1695 that is recorded in the archives, in the museums, in the universities. But I'm also way before that, before the colonials came, before the Xhosas or the Bantu people came. Before them, my ancestors ruled Southern Africa. We need to understand why I say ruled. South Africa was divided up into two monarchies of the Khoi San people. One was below the Fish River, and one was above the Fish River. The one above the Fish River was called the Khoi Clown dynasty of the Khoi, the big defenders, protecting the Khoi from the invaders of the north of Northern Africa. And below the Fish River was Jan Jonker Afrikaner. Afrikaner was given to him because they started the Afrikaans language as a bartering language in the Cape. And that is why they were given that was eventually became their clan name, Jan Jonker Afrikaner. And because of colonialism, they were pushed out of Cape Town. And they traveled all the way up along the west coast, fighting colonials, fighting the Redos and the Wambus from Southwest Africa. And eventually, at the end of all that, one of my great-grandfathers named the town called Klein Windhoek, which is Windhoek today. And his name was Jan Jonker Afrikaner. My other grandfather, the Cornelius clan, when they left, they were given the name Cornelius because they couldn't pronounce the Khoi name. And they left in 1840, also because of the colonialists from the Northern Africa, and went to assist Jan Jonker Afrikaner in Namibia, where the two of them signed the peace treaty in 1858, the Treaty of Honduras, where the two of them says that they are the only true monarchs of the Khoi of Southern Africa. Eventually, when they were killed, their children then got married. Jan Jonker had a daughter named Maria Jonker Afrikaner, and she got married to Petrus. And they were given a horse racing farm in Dordrecht in lieu of his status as the king. And their firstborn son, named David Daniel Cornelius, was cut under his feet because it was a part of our culture to identify the firstborn son of the king. When Afrikanerdom came in, the horse racing farm was taken away from them. They were chased away so that the people could be leaderless. And then David Daniel Cornelius married Henrietta Arendse, and their firstborn son was John Peter Cornelius. And he married Theresa Magdalena Roman, and their firstborn son was Calvin Daniel John Cornelius, and that is me. And this is why I am addressed as King Calvin Cornelius III, because I'm the third from the joint union of the two monarchs. So I'm the only bloodline king of the Khoi San people of Southern Africa.
Wow, that is amazing. Thank you very much for giving us that rendition of your ancestry. I think it's very important for people to understand exactly how the claim is laid and what is that based upon. So currently we sit in a situation where South Africa is possibly one of the most corrupt countries on the planet. We see the complete annihilation of specific race groups, complete cultural genocide going on of the native Afrikaners. And we also see the complete destruction of an economy and country at the hands of the corrupt and African National Congress government. What is your views on all of that?
We sit and my council, I have a royal council, and we sit and we discuss how can we rectify the damage that was done. Now, we know we can do nothing about the damage that was done to our culture and our people in the past. But we need to do something to rectify the injustice and the damage that's being done now. And we have decided that, you see, in 2007, when the United Nations passed the Declaration for the Rights of Indigenous People, our government, with 143 other governments throughout the whole world, signed that declaration. And then we believed we were free, and we believed we had a voice to speak. And then we were told that there is no law in South Africa that says we are people. So international law cannot be applied to you. So we know that nobody's listening, because there's an old Khoi San saying in life that says, just listen for once to what we have to say, so that you may never be ignorant again. But nobody listens, and nobody gives us a chance to speak. So we know within the declaration that it says there that every person has the right to self-determination. Every person has the right to determine who he is, where he wants to be in life, what he wants to do. And like-minded people has come together and say, stop. Just listen for once to what we have to say. Often in life, when we look at children and we chastise the child and we say, you need to listen, and the child don't listen, then we need to take action to stop that child from hurting himself more. Now, as the custodian of the land and the people, we need to do something to say, stop. You're hurting the land. You're hurting the people. We know how to do it. We don't know when we want to do it. But we cannot do it alone. So everybody in South Africa, and I'm saying everybody in South Africa that has the same heart and the same mind to stop the genocide that is happening in our country, needs to stand up and say, stop. Because if you do not speak, your children and your grandchildren is going to hold you accountable one day and says, you had the power, you had the authority to stop this genocide, and you did nothing. So if we see how bad it is now, can we imagine how bad it's going to be in 20 years' time? I cannot think about it. So we have to do something.
Yes, indeed. And that's a very good point. Thank you, Your Highness. So myself and Karen have dedicated our lives to trying to bring awareness and to give a voice to people like yourselves, those people who have not had a chance to hear, who the international media block out because they're controlled by the globalist agenda. And we very much want to support the Khoi San Nation and the general coming together, unification, and non-violence to be brought into South Africa, because we have there in South Africa probably one of the most beautiful and diverse countries in the world. And yet, there are so many of us who've had to flee due to the economic circumstances. Myself and Karen are the type of people who have become economic refugees in other countries. And we look back with heartache at what is happening to the people who are still stuck there, those who have not been fortunate enough to perhaps find work, who have fallen short in society, those who've ended up in squatter camps. And that's not just one particular racial group. It's across the board. You know, there's white squatter camps, there's black squatter camps. Half the South African population are living in utter poverty. The crime rate is off the chart. The violent murder, torture, genocide rate is probably one of the worst in the world. And it's an unfortunate thing that it's not getting any better, no matter how much we try, no matter how much we want it to. And we're now at a time where a caveat exists for us to make a difference. And we're so grateful for you and the Khoi San Nation for actually coming forward and going, okay, we have solutions. This is what we want to do. So I'd like to ask you exactly what your plans are and how you see this unfolding.
Oh, my son spoke to me this afternoon. He says, Daddy, you need to remember, this is a chess game. And you never let your opponent know your next move. So to rectify the injustice of the present, we have to be strategic about it. Because when you want to rectify injustice, let me just paint a scenario quickly. We are living in a country, one of the most beautiful countries in the world. And I've been to quite a few countries, but South Africa has always been the most beautiful, maybe because I am the custodian of the land. But my people are living in such squalor conditions. A few years ago, they phoned me from St. Helena Bay, just down the coast from me. And they said, we couldn't fish today because the weather was bad. But don't worry, we killed the neighbor's dog to feed the children. And I got very angry. And they said, don't worry, half the dog is in the fridge for tomorrow. And one of the elders told me, it's okay, my boy. They told me, it's okay. At least the children ate. But what about the boy that lost his pet? So actions has a negative reaction and spin-offs and vibrations that touches a lot of other floors. I live in Gordons Bay, beautiful retirement village. I'm not retired, but a beautiful village. Over the mountains from me, I'm with a grandmother one day, and she's got a big pot and she's making maize meal. And she's stirring the pot and she's crying. I said, Granny, now why are you crying? She says, my child, there won't be enough food for all the children tonight. And I have no cash on me. And I'm upset. And she goes into the room and she comes back with a newspaper. And she's smiling and she tears up the newspaper and she throws it into the pot. And she stirs it and the maize meal becomes black from the ink. And I say, Granny, now why are you smiling? She says, my child, all the children will be able to eat tonight. And that made me realize that my children are eating maize meal and newspaper for supper. And we're living in the 21st century, and now the mineral wealth of our country is valued at 36 trillion rand. We're one of the richest mineral wealth countries in the world. And nobody's getting anything. The lie that they've told us all these years that all men are equal before the law is a lie. Because if all men are equal, why are the children suffering? If all men are equal, why are we the invisible people? And now we're talking about in excess of 4 million people. My wife rectified me the other day when I said we're 4 million people. She says, you need to understand we are much more than 4 million people. Now, 4 million people in the 55 million people country that is invisible is a lot of people. And we are all invisible in this land of our ancestors. Now we look at the new economy we have with the so-called democracy, and we call it so-called democracy because it's a lie. It's not democracy. It's a racist state. It's an unconstitutional place we're living in. And we're saying that if 4 million people is invisible, how many other people are there also invisible? We have 11 million homeless people. Homeless people that stands on street corners and live in shelters in this beautifully rich country. Somebody's got to stand up and say, what do we do to rectify this injustice? But I know that I cannot do it alone. God has given, and I said to Karin the other day, I says, God has given every one of us a gift and a talent. And your talent is not for you, but it's for you to use for others to benefit from. And if we start putting all these talents together, we make a complete opportunity to rectify the injustice of the present. So I'm holding out my hands and saying, all those that have the same heart as I have, all those that have the same desire that my country, and I say my country because I am the custodian of this land, and I am the custodian of the people, whether they believe it or not, whether they white, black, like Karin said, even green, I am still their custodian. But all of them that have the capacity and the abilities must come forward and say, I can do this, I can do that for the betterment of all the people. Once we do that, now we can say, let's do something to change it.
Yes, absolutely. And, you've literally brought me to tears in saying that, because that is exactly how Karin and I feel, is that we all have to use our talents to sort the situation out. It's such a dire situation. We can't just sit around letting each day go by with more children going hungry, more suffering continuing, more violence, more corruption, more of our resources being channeled to a few people whilst many, many, many people suffer. And obviously, we're beside ourselves wondering, what is going to happen to the people who are stuck there, and how do we help them? Your Highness, how do we help them?
I have a vision, and I might share this vision with you. What if every person in South Africa is given 100,000 rand, just given for nothing, just because you belong, and we have the capacity to do that. And then we have television programs, we have people to educate us and say, this is how you can make more money. This is how you can start your own business. This is how you can economically empower yourself. We will have no hungry people in South Africa. Firstly, we have no hungry people in South Africa. And secondly, if you come back after a few years and says, I have no more money, then you go to the army, or you go work in the hospitals, or you go do something that will empower you. But during that time period, the world has a saying and says, don't give a man a fish to feed him for a day, but teach him how to fish to feed him for a lifetime. And I say that's wrong. I say, give a man a fish, for you do not know when last he ate. And then you teach him how to fish. But above all that, show him where to fish. Because once he's caught that fish, you can now tell him how to sell it. And now you can walk away because now you're self-empowered. But don't tell him to go catch fish if he's hungry. He wouldn't be able to. I had this passion that I would give my last plate of food, or my plate of food, to somebody else and says, you rather have that. I know when last I ate. I don't know when last you ate. And then I was told by the elders, and they said to me, you don't give away your blessing. You share the blessing. You say, take half of my plate, not my whole plate, because then you will have nothing. And this is where the thought came in, that if we give every citizen in South Africa 100,000 rand, parents wouldn't be able to say, but I can't send my child to school because there's no school fees anymore. They wouldn't be able to stand in the street corners to beg. They wouldn't have to steal because they have. There'll be less abuse. Now, I cannot understand why the politicians cannot think that way. But again, they are politicians. But if we have this vision and this love for mankind, and Jesus warned us, he says, I condense these 10 commandments that God has given you into 2. He says, love God above all and your neighbor as yourself. And we've lost that neighborly love for each other because we're all about me, myself, and I. And I think this is the danger of what is happening in South Africa, that some people have become economically empowered and now it's all about them and their families and nobody else matters. And when we bring back spirituality to the people, and I warned somebody the other day, I says, you cannot talk about religion. It's not about religion. It's about spirituality. It's about love and kindness and sharing with kindness and doing good and being good. Because we need to understand that we are all spiritual beings. We are a gift from God to earth so that we can help each other. An old saying in life, I don't know where I read it, but it says that we are all human beings, are all angels with one wing. And we cannot fly unless we take the hand of somebody else, and then we can fly. And this is the message that we're putting out to South Africa and to the rest of the world and saying, come take my hand and let us fly and free my people. And like you and Karen, you are reaching out your hands and saying, come, let us all be angels together. And that is how I interpret you, because of your love and your passion for my people. And my people is all the people in South Africa that I'm responsible for. So you can feel my heart and you know where I'm going to with that.
Yes, indeed. You have me in tears. I feel your heart and I feel your passion. And I wanted you to perhaps explain a little bit more. You mentioned in your introduction that we are all stewards of the earth. You know, we are here to look after the earth. And the average South African thinks that, you know, we own South Africa, we own land, you know, we control things. When actually we're not here to own and control. We're here to look after and steward this planet.
There's 2 examples I can make for you. For example, in 2001, they wanted to build a private beach in the waterfront for the very rich. And the fisherman came to me and says, where are we going to fish from? This is our slip where we need to launch our boats from here. It's the safest place. If we go anywhere else along the coast, we'll drown. And I spoke to the politicians and nobody listened. And one Saturday morning, I went to the slipway and I annexed the land under international law. And it was in the Los Angeles Times and Swiss television programs, but throughout the whole South Africa, front page in the Saturday newspaper. And then I went to the United Nations and I read out the letter of annexation there in front of 900 different indigenous people and all government representatives in the world. And it was the first year that South African government ever made a presentation. But there I also mentioned all historically Khoi owned land that has historical value to us and spiritual value to us. And then in 2009, they wanted to sell a mountain in Hout Bay. Now, can you sell a mountain? But they wanted to sell a mountain in Hout Bay, and Oprah Winfrey and Donald Trump and Nelson Mandela Foundation and Tokyo Sequoia Foundation, they all came together to bid for this mountain. And the mountain was going to be sold for 77 million rand. I know Hout Bay. My people live on the mountain and they live from the mountain. And they kept this auction very, very quiet. The night before the auction, I heard about it. And we rushed up. My wife sent emails to all the NGOs and organizations and told them that I'm going to annex the mountain. And I went the morning on live television. I knocked a board in on the mountain in the rain. And I said, I, King Khoebaha Cornelius, annex this mountain under international law for the best people to live on and to live from. And then when we came down the mountain, the police were there and they started getting aggressive. And I told Buczynski, who was the auctioneer, I said to them, you need to understand and make these people aware that whoever buys this mountain will be buying stolen property. And there's a law in the country, in our country, that says it is a criminal offense to be in possession of stolen property. But then the police started getting agitated and aggravated, and they started shooting tear gas and rubber bullets. And I put my wife and my son behind me, and I stood there because I've been standing there since 1976 with the first riots in South Africa for equal education. But a year later, I was invited, and I'll come to the point, a year later, I was invited to Germany. They had a genealogy and aerobic science conference with 55 scientists throughout the world. And they invited me because the theme of that conference was identity. And I was now the guest speaker. And while I was speaking to the mayor of Stuttgart, the Slovakian government representatives came in there and says, can we please stop the procedure? And I was very, know what's happening. And they said, we study heraldry and we study genealogy. And we know in the olden times, the king used to run in front in battle. But never again we've seen it. But what we know of this king, that he stood in front of rubber bullets and tear gas to stop them from selling a mountain. And I was gobsmacked. And they said we want to give him an award of bravery. And they put the award of bravery around my neck, and for the first time in my life, I was speechless. But then I realized what an impact we have in South Africa, the things we do in South Africa has on the rest of the world. Those that is interested in knowing what is happening. So if I stopped, not me, but my office, stopped them from selling a mountain, stop them from building a private beach. If we stand together, and when we stand together, we can stop them from abusing this land. Because we've seen how many billions of rand has left the country, how mines are being sold by, or being taken over by wealthy people. In the Northern Cape, my people have diamond mines, and a multinational company, extremely rich South African, comes and he buys the mines from them. And in a few months' time, they have no more money left. But he don't empower them. So now he's sitting with all the mineral wealth and is empowering himself more, and already he's one of the billionaires in South Africa. And we are saying, whoa, we need to stop this. We need to empower our people, and this is where the word comes in, the right to self-determination. Because if you know what you have, and you know where you're going to, and you can take somebody's hand that will show you how to do it, and how to do it properly, again, giving the man a fish, teaching him how to fish, all fits into the right to self-determination. So I think that is one of the things that we plan to do, is to stop the genocide. And people in the world think genocide is when you kill. But genocide is not only when you kill a person. Genocide is when you kill a person's hope. You kill a person's desire. You kill a person's longing. You kill a person's identity. You kill a person's self-worth. Then you're committing genocide. Now, we as people that understand God and understand love. Now, this is why the colonials could roam South Africa so easily and take over, because of we share. You come, I give, you take, but you never give back. And this is what is happening in South Africa now. That the ANC government has seen the opportunities. We all fought for freedom. They saw the opportunities, and now they're taking and they're taking and they're taking, and they're not giving back. That is how the first Khoi Dutch War started in 1658, with the colonials coming, and we gave and we expected them to give back, and they never gave. So we need to stand up and say, you need to stop this because you got a problem.
Yes, for sure. I would like to ask a little bit more about the concept of self-determination from your perspective. This is obviously a term that gets bandied around and largely misunderstood. And in South Africa's past, when there have been efforts to create self-determining states such as the Bantustans, it was grossly misconstrued and spun out of proportion, and really it turned out to be something called apartheid, where a lot of rights were breached and horrible things were done. And it has been just so misunderstood by so many people. So give us your perspective on what self-determination means for the South African.
The man on the street don't understand the concept of self-determination. He doesn't understand what self-determination is. He gets up, goes and look for work, spends the whole day away from home, comes back and says, I didn't find work. He has no self-determination, but he makes an effort. And I often say to my son, I said, you need to understand that effort and sacrifice always brings rewards. So, but I can't say intellectuals, but people that understand where they want to be, people that can understand right from wrong, are coming together now and saying, this is not how it's supposed to be. We have the right to freedom. We as the non-whites, if you can call that word, because of the apartheid regime. In 1994, when we made our first tick for democracy, we believed we were free. We believed and we were so excited that now we have the right to determine our own destiny. Because as indigenous, as original people, our destiny was taken away from us. And our right was taken away from us from the very first time the colonials set foot in the land. And it was determined by them how we should live and where we should live and how we... But now with democracy, we can determine our own destiny. And that is what we believed. Until 1995, when we found out that the United Nations only found out now that we still exist. They didn't know that we were still alive. And that is why they forced our government to include us into the House of Traditional Leaders in 1999. So they changed the coat of arms to acknowledge to the world that, no, we understand the original people, the Khoi San people, use the language and the figurines. And then they invite us to draft a white paper. And in 2003, they tell us it's not for you, it's only for the black people. So now we completely disillusioned. But I fought in 76, I fought in 80s. I got freedom in 94. In 95, I got a bit more freedom because now I'm being acknowledged as original. In 99, I'm saying here's an opportunity for you to sit within the powers that be. And in 2003, I'm being told it's not for you. So now we are totally disillusioned because we believe we had the right for determination. So now we're sitting down and we're saying, where do I want to be next year? And how am I going to get there? So now I have the white people coming down and saying, oh, I also want to be there. And we have the colored people saying, yeah, but I also want to be there. Because where you're going to is a nice place. Where you're going to is equality. Where you're going to is real freedom. Where you're going to is economic empowerment. So I also want to be there. And by all people coming together with the same mindset and the same heart's attitude, we're going to get there. So I hope I'm making myself clearer on our right to self-determination.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely. It is the ultimate dream, the complete freedom and economic empowerment of each and every person in Southern Africa. In fact, across the world, we all have the right to the basics, which is the right to survive at the very least, if not the right to thrive, the right to education, and the right to raise our children in our country of birth without having to flee and fear for our lives. And there are those of us like myself and Karen who have made the ultimate sacrifice. And in a way, it has given us the opportunity to be able to sit outside the borders and actually do what we do, because we know people doing what we do inside South Africa, they don't last very long. And there's people there are very, very scared to speak out because of everything that's going on, the violence and the corruption. And, in a way, it has been necessary for us to make that sacrifice to be able to do shows like this and create the media platforms for people like yourself. And, well, we want to know what we can do to help with the self-determination process.
Oh, thank you for asking. I've got a long list.
Go ahead.
Last year was the first time I was given the opportunity to be interviewed by SABC TV newsroom. But fortunately, it was one of my people was the journalist or the interviewer. And I had a 10-minute interview. And then I said all the things I needed to say very quickly. And when people in Germany and the rest of Europe saw the interview on YouTube, they couldn't believe that government had given me the opportunity to speak so blatantly and calling the president a racist person and telling the president that he is the cause of the cultural genocide in the country. They thought they were going to censor the program, but fortunately it was live. So for years I've been saying, all I want is an opportunity to get some airtime, to tell the world of what is really happening in the so-called beautiful rainbow nation that is a lie. Now, when people say, you're lying, what do they mean? In 2001, when we heard about Saartjie Baartman coming home, and everybody was excited about Saartjie Baartman coming home, and the whole world knows about Saartjie Baartman that left South Africa with the big breast and the big buttocks and the vagina and the Venus Princess, they call her. And the government says she's coming home. And I got a message from the curator of the museum in Paris, and he says, she's not coming home. I said, what do you mean? He says, her body parts that they cut off. Because Saartjie Baartman was, her breast was cut off, her vagina was cut out, her buttocks was cut off, her brains was taken out and put in glass containers so people could see that she's the Hottentot Venus. He says, that is still in glass containers in the back of the museum in Paris. They're sending the bust that they made and a skeleton to be buried in South Africa. I said, but somebody's lying. He says, yes. And then when I went forward, they wouldn't give me a chance to speak. And I told him, I have proof. I went to Deborah Patter, and I called her, I used the name Deborah Patter of Third Degree. And I wrote a letter to her. I says, Deborah, I have information, a video cassette of the Curator Museum, that because your program is very controversial, I have a video cassette saying that the remains of Saartjie Baartman is still in the museum, is not coming back. And she says to me, oh, unfortunately, that is too radical. We can't view it. We can't air it. It's too radical. And I couldn't, and now what you're telling me, I couldn't understand then what is too radical. But I understood later on that journalists and TV people are not allowed to do whatever they're supposed to do or want to do because they are controlled by the government. So by me getting a chance to speak out, in 2014 I was invited to the United Nations to receive the 20th Century King's Award of Achievement. I was one of 12 kings of Africa that was invited, but I was the only king of South Africa. And there was no media hype about it because I was the only king and the invisible king. And they wouldn't even compensate me to give me a plane fare or accommodation, nothing. Fortunately, I got a benefactor from Germany, and he paid for my plane fare through to New York, into the hotel. And when I got the award, I got a King's Award of Achievement, 20th Century King's Award of Achievement, a Congressional Award, Senatorial Award, and other awards. And I said to the American, says, you know, the American says, we're the land of the free, we're the home of the brave, but you still draw the line at the N-word. In South Africa, we are saying we have the best democracy in the world. All men are equal before the law, except the Khoi San people. And they didn't understand what I was talking about. And I said to them, oh, but you people fought to get rid of apartheid. Oh, yes, we know about apartheid. I says, but you don't know that we're living in the reverse apartheid. We're living in an apartheid where the black man decides what is best for me. Where the black man decides how I should live my culture. He determines my culture for me, even though they stole from our culture. We don't have an opportunity to exercise our culture. The government has decided now that they will decide who is going to be the Khoi San chiefs in the land because they are getting paid for it by government. And I say to them, that is not our culture. The culture is that the king would appoint the chief, or the chief comes with his bloodline and says, this is my bloodline from my grandfather, my great-grandfather, and the king endorses that. The president has no authority over a culture. So these are the things that is happening in the country that we need to change. And you coming in and on a platform where I have airtime and can tell the world of what is really happening. Oh, it is a moment for me. It's a moment where I sit back and I thank God that He's brought you into my life so that my people can be saved. So thank you.
It is our honor and a true privilege to be able to give whatever assistance we can, however humble this platform is, to you, to be able to get this message across. Because, you know, irrespective of what color we appear to be inside, we are African. All right, we are African. Our heart beats with Africa, and we want to see South Africa, possibly the most wealthy country in the world, pull itself right. Because if it can be done there, it can be done everywhere else. Africa has always been a beacon of light for the rest of the world. So yes, we want to help you as much as we can, and we're most certainly going to be circulating this information as far and wide as possible. But what is it that you'd like us to do? How else can we help you? Please give us some more information.
In 2008, Jacob Zuma sent a delegation to my house saying, how can I help the Khoi San nation when I become president? Oh, we're very excited. And I mentioned to Karin, so we're very excited because he's a traditionalist. He's supposed to be a Zulu chief. And we wrote down all the things that he can do and where we want to be. We even designated the place where we can build a palace for the king so that the tourists can see that the Khoi San King becomes a tourist attraction. And in 2009, when he became president, he wouldn't answer my letters or my phone call. And in 2010, I went to the Human Rights Commission. I says, you know, we had an agreement with the president. And all I want him to do is answer me. Just answer me. Tell me, no, it's not viable anymore. Or yes, we can do it. It doesn't, just answer me. Because international law says that I am First Nation indigenous of the land. And they agreed to it. So he has to speak to me. And they told me that the Human Rights Commission in South Africa, their mandate is only for South African law. They don't have a mandate for international human rights law. I said, well, then you can't help me. He said, no, we can't. Then I went to the public protector because the public protector is supposed to be the watchdog of government. So I go to them, I send all the information. I says, this is what was promised, and nobody's answering. Because there's a thing within government that says Bato Pele. Bato Pele means if somebody greets you, greet him back. So if I make a written request to you, you have to answer me. I said, but the president is not even getting to Bato Pele. Oh, but you got to speak to the minister. I says, the minister never sent a delegation to my house. The president did. Oh, we will look into the matter. And nothing happened. And then one of my advisors says, now, why didn't you go to court? So I go to the High Court in Cape Town. And I says, I want to lay a charge of cultural genocide against the president. And I got a case number. I couldn't believe it. I was so excited. There was a media hype in South Africa that the king has laid a charge of cultural genocide against the president, Jacob Zuma. Oh, and people came forward and says, how can we help? We had anthropologists from Stellenbosch University. We had political science students from Cape Town University coming forward and says, how can I add value? But we needed advocates. And then one of the benefactors came forward and says, I will pay for this. One of my people, I pay for this. Oh, and I said, oh, thank you, Lord. Now we're going places. And we got an advocate. We got senior counsel. Even Paul Hoffman was our senior counsel, one of the biggest advocates in South Africa. And we appeared before Judge Issa Mosa, who was late today. It was his swan song. He was going to be retired. And while the matter was still on the roll, we're sitting in the chambers of the advocate, and an advocate from government walks in. And he says, well, you know, we want to settle this matter out of court. We're offering you 44 million rand. I says, how do I divide 44 million rand into 4 million people? I said, no, thank you. Let the justice take its course. Because the advocates are saying, we can't lose. There's no way we're going to lose this matter. Oh, we excited. A week later, our benefactor, who had all government contracts, lost all his contracts. So we couldn't pay the advocates. So the advocate says, well, you can't pay me, then we have to take the matter off the roll. So since 2010, the matter has been laying at court and cannot go on the roll because government knows that when we are not economically empowered, we cannot speak from a position of strength. So we are being economically suppressed. People in the world need to understand that we as Africans are see, feel, and touch people. When you tell me you're going to do something, then I believe you. We have had so many promises of people saying, oh, we pledged to do that, and we pledged to give you a couple of million rand for your court case. And I said to them, do you understand that a couple of million rand is only $100,000? It's only $100,000. No, it's easy. We'll do that for you. You get the lawyers, advocates up, and you can take the matter forward. And nobody has come forward to assist us. And we're not standing begging. All we want is a helping hand. And Karen said it's hand up, boy. But it's a helping hand so that we can go forward to rectify injustice. So if we don't, often we have to ask ourselves, what is our first priority? Do I feed a hungry child or do I fight for freedom? And I've got a way of what I do with the little bit I have. And as nature and as your heart beats, you first feed the child because he's the future of the country. So we don't have the economic empowerment or enough financial capacity to take our matters to the legal system. So in that matter, the world can help us.
Brilliant. Well, Karen, you want to jump in here?
Yes, absolutely. King Cornelius, we spoke, you know, I've been crying so much during this interview, I actually almost speechless, because you speak directly to my heart. You speak exactly of what I feel for the people of South Africa. They have, all of them, undergone such awful times, and this ANC government has robbed them blind. I see that there are 58,000 jobs bitten the dust this year already. It's supposed to be 1 million by the end of the year. All the big corporations are leaving South Africa. 6 motor companies have left. Sutterford's has closed down. I mean, for the Americans, that's the Macy's of South Africa. They've been around 175 years. People
Absolutely.
all over South Africa to shop there. They've closed their doors because the country has been downgraded to junk status. Nobody's working. Unemployment is at 57%. The country is a mess. But in amongst all of that mess, certain minorities are downtrodden to below garbage. They are thrown, and it's a terrible thing to say, but it is the absolute truth. They have been thrown on the garbage heap of the world, and hopefully by the world forgotten about. So what the ANC government have done is they have thrown the white population literally onto garbage heaps. If anyone knows anything about Muncieville, they will know it's a garbage heap. They have thrown the poor white population onto that garbage heap, who are poor by no fault of their own, simply because of the color of their skin. They have done the same thing, just quicker and without the world noticing, to the Khoi people, the colored people of South Africa. They have always been at the bottom of the garbage heap, never mind on top of it, at the bottom of it. And it is brave of people like the King to stand up and say this far and no further. So, King Cornelius, you and your wife, Queen Jenny, have moved me beyond tears. And what I would like to know from you is how you've managed to find it in your heart to put your hand out to the self-same people who have treated you so badly through the centuries. For me, that you don't hate them and don't say, all right, this is not my land, but God gave me this land and I'm in charge of it and you must go away because that's what you did to me. How do you find it possible to be so kind, loving, and caring to people who, if it were me, I would feel they didn't deserve it?
I'll answer you, Karin. And thank you for the question. You see, I'm smiling. When I was younger, I had the saying, so shall it be written, so shall it be done. I am the king, I've spoken. And the old people came to me and they said to me, my child, do you know what a king is? I said, yes. He's ordained by God to rule the people. And he says, yes. The king is the servant of God. He's the first servant of God. And when he's a servant of God, he needs to serve. But he's never subservient. And a servant is never arrogant. And then I realized what my purpose on this earth is. As a servant of God, ordained by God, for the benefit of his people. Now, when God gave the land, and my ancestors were put in authority over the land, people came out of greed, out of ignorance, and they took, and they took, and they took. And the genocide that we experienced, we cannot change that. We cannot rectify it. But the genocide that is happening now, and because God has blessed me with the understanding and with the kind heart, that I need to lead the people by example. Now, I walk with this kiri. You can see it every day. Now this kiri, my grandfather taught me how to fight with the kiri because I'm an African. I know how to fight with the kiri. And the red beads is the love and the vibrance I have in my heart to share. And the white beads is the peace I offer you. So you know I won't hurt you, even though I can, but I won't. And the gold beads is the truth that I speak. And these beads around my neck is made of seeds. So I preserve life. And the tooth is of a wild boar. I fear nothing other than God. Now, as God's servant, I put God first in my life. And when I put God first in my life, I am responsible to God for his people. And all the people in this land is my responsibility. So whether you're a murderer, the justice system will sort you out. Whether you're an abuser, the justice system will sort you out, should sort you out. If you're hungry, that's my job. If you're unhappy about how you live, that is my job. Because the first thing I do is I ask you, what do you want me to do for you? And I'll tell you a small example. A few years ago, 3 days before Christmas, I got about a half a ton of clothes from a factory that is closed down. New clothes. And I said to myself, where do people need these clothes the most? And we went up to the Northern Cape 3 days before Christmas. And I came to a village called Extenfontein up in the Richtersveld. But I only had girl clothes, no boys' clothes. And I sat in the house with a mother and a son, 2 sons, and they were playing outside. And I asked them, what are you having for Christmas for lunch? So we're having peanut butter and jam sandwiches. And I said, no, you can't have that. It's Christmas. And I looked in my wallet and I only had 360 rand. And I gave it, I said, please go buy Christmas food for your children. And she took the money. She said, thank you very much. She says, but is it okay if I go buy them clothes? I says, you're the mother. You decide what is best for your family. And she says, if I don't buy them clothes, their friends outside is going to tease them the whole year that they're the only children who never got new clothes. But nobody sees what I eat behind my closed doors. I says, you know what your needs are. You decide what is best for you. Then I went up to the Kgalagadi Game Reserve to David Kraper, the bushman. And I phoned him. I says, David, I'm coming. I said, do you have coffee? He says, no. I said, do you have tea? He says, no. I said, do you have food? He says, no. He says, but what you can do for me is bring a chocolate cake for the children. They've never eaten a chocolate cake ever in their life. So I stop off in Uppington, the town, and I buy a chocolate cake, and I buy coffee and sugar and water, and I ride to the desert, and the children are all excited, and they're standing in the queue waiting for the chocolate cake. And later I see some of them walk away dejected. And I said, now why are they so sad? And he said to me, there wasn't enough cake for their children. And they have never tasted chocolate cake ever in their life. And then I raised up my cup and I threw the water away. He says, please don't throw the water away. You don't understand, we're in the desert. And when I left there, the old man came to me. He says, my boy, he says, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for bringing clothes to the children. But the next time you come, please bring us food. And then I realized that I cannot decide what is best for my people. They have to tell me, because here the one village I thought that they needed clothes, they needed food, where they said they needed clothes. In the other village where I thought they needed clothes, they needed food. And this is why I ask my people, what do you want me to do for you? And when you have that mindset and that heart of compassion, then color is not important. Your race is not important. My wife and we have a small, my wife is a herbal doctor or herbal practitioner. And we sell Khoi San oils. And one day I sold a few bottles and I came home. I says, we need to give thanks to God. And she says, let's make food for the hungry children. At 4 o'clock in the morning, I stood and I made a 15 milliliter pot of soup. And I took it to the children, but they dished it out to them. And the gratitude of their children was so overwhelming that I did it for 4 years until I couldn't anymore because the funds ran out. But it was every child that came for food. What nationality was not important. The color of his skin was not important. He was hungry. Because the minute he got that plate of food, he sat down there by the car and ate it immediately. And that showed me how hungry my children are. So when you talk about children living on dumps, I know that. And my heart goes, if I had so much money, that is why I said earlier, if I can give every family, every person 100,000 rand, just so that they can stop being hungry, then my work is nearly finished. Because when you see hungry people, they show scripts of Ethiopian hungry people on TV. Yes, I empathize with them. But when you see it in your own backyard, when you see it down the road, when you see it across the mountain or across the street, that affects you and that changes your mindset and your heart and says, how can I add value without causing harm? And that is my purpose in life, is to add value without causing harm. So I cannot cause harm. And this is why every person in this country becomes my responsibility. I hope that answers your question, Karin.
I'm still crying about children who've never eaten chocolate cake. It's a thing I take for granted in my own life so much. I mean, I can go into my kitchen anytime I want and call my grandchildren over and we'll bake together. And we will mess flour and sugar and icing sugar and sprinkles and cherries all over the kitchen until I want to cry from the mess. But we have that freedom to go and do that any day that we want to. I cannot imagine children who don't know that small, simple pleasure of daily life of licking the chocolate icing out of the bowl with their chocolate-covered faces and their big grins. For me, it's heart sore to think that they don't even know what it is. Never mind go to the kitchen with their grandmother and do it. It hurts my heart so badly because there are things that I've taken for granted all my life, and I've never been rich. My parents had 5 children. we moved a lot. We were relatively poor, but we always had that. We always had a granny to go and bake with. We always had food on our table. It might not have been a luxurious meal, but we had food. And my heart has been broken for years about the white children in the squatter camps, because those eyes are so desperate and so empty. They have no hope. They don't know where their next meal's coming from. They don't know if they're going to sleep warm tonight. They're not being educated because the parents can't afford it. And now on top of that horror, I have the horror of your people who have centuries more of this ill treatment than we have had. And I can't bear it. King, I just can't bear it. My heart is breaking for the South African situation. We have got to get the world to stand up and do something, to help, to contribute, to take notice, to just even look and acknowledge that there is a problem for all the children in South Africa. Even as you said, if they're green and come from Mars, they are suffering the same way. And if Mel and I can raise a big enough voice to make people pay attention, my life's work is done. I have done a good deal, because this is killing me. I can't bear it for the children, the adults. I kind of feel as an adult myself, I'm self-sufficient. I can more or less look after myself. But those poor, innocent babies that are the future of the world, to be treated in this way is horrific. And I can't tell you enough how much my heart goes out to you, because I can't stand this. So if we can help, and if we can raise funds, and if we can raise attention more than anything else to the plight of our people in South Africa, of all colors, all races, I will give my last breath to do that. Don't I really have a question for you, because I'm so heart sore.
Thank you, Karen. I must just say, Kate, it is an honor to be able to work with someone like Karen who feels as deeply as I do, because we have suffered the ultimate price for nothing other than the color of our skin. Born in South Africa, marginalized for being white, having to flee. I have my whole family who still live there and who live in daily fear of losing everything, of having it all taken from them, all their hard work, because of the Land Reclamation Acts, because of the violence. And to live in that fear, I think, has to be one of the hardest things that you would have to endure, and to daily watch people being murdered on their farms, and seeing these farmers who are, responsible for creating the food that feeds the nation slowly being dissipated and genocided out. You kind of wonder what's going to happen when there's no food left. What's going to happen when one day mommy walks into Woolworths and there's nothing on the shelf? I mean, we have to do something now. We have to step up and we have to take action. What are you suggesting?
I told you earlier, our future and our way forward for our right to self-determination is planned. It's planned. We have a plan. We have a plan. Believe me, we have a plan. I cannot tell you what the plan is, but I want you to have the comfort and the knowledge that there is a plan. And we are not going to see this country being lost. In 2001, when I was sworn in as the king, I was taken to the Chief Justice in Cape Town, Chief Judge Lope, and asked him to stamp and sign the document for me. And he said, well, I'm too busy now and I'm short of judges, but go to the Chief Magistrate. He will stamp and sign it for you. And we go to the Chief Magistrate, Johan Venter, and eventually, after a lot of running around, he stamps and signs this document. And the document says that I, King Khoebaha Cornelius III, am the legal custodian of all Khoi San land of Southern Africa. And we go and we give out this document to all the ambassadors in South Africa from the whole world, inviting and welcoming them into our land. Some of them took us serious and others didn't, because they know that there's no law in South Africa that says we are people. So that document cannot become a legal instrument until we are legislated as people. Now that document should give the rest of South Africans comfort, knowing that the king of this land is the legal custodian of the land. And this king stood in front of rubber bullets and tear gas in 29, not scared of anything. And he will not be scared of determining the way forward to rectify the injustices of the present. So all expats, all South Africans can have that comfort and know that we have a plan. And we're going to rectify this. But I cannot tell you how.
Do you have a fear for your safety and the safety of your people with this plan?
You're breaking up there for a minute. I couldn't get the question.
I beg your pardon. What about your safety? I mean, are you safe? Do you have what about your people if you're going to go forward with trying to rectify the situation? I mean, there is such a massive control from the outside forces, such as the globalists who have a absolute fist hold over South Africa. How do you plan on staying safe through this all?
I think we have a problem with the signal. But let me answer the question quickly. I said earlier, I have no fear. I have no fear. And my life is in God's hands. I know that. Nothing will happen to me unless God allowed that. So I have no fear, but I'm cautious. We put in protective mechanisms. Oh, yeah, we have to. We mustn't be negligent about the way forward. God has given us the knowledge and the ability, and we have to implement that. So yes, my people are wary about my protection, and they put mechanisms in place to protect me, but I'm not scared. So when you have no fear, then you walk into, I won't say the lion's den, you walk into somebody's backyard with a dog, and have no fear for the dog because the dog will know that you're not scared of him. So I'm coming into my own house. Whether the neighbor brings his dog, it's irrelevant to me. It's my house. So you understand the strategy. Before we used to say, can I please get my cup back that I borrowed you? And now I'm saying, can I please take my cup? So I just take my cup because it is my cup. And this cup will feed so many people because I know how to do it. So we have a strategy of how we're going about it, but we're not vigilante or negligent or stupid. My son said to me this morning, he says, Daddy, life is like a chess game. Nobody knows your moves, but you have to think 5 moves ahead of the next person. And you need to be careful because your pawns are the ones that are the biggest, going to be hurt first. And then your castles, because if your knights are gone, and your castles are gone, then you have no flank protection. But it says you have a consolation that the king is never toppled in a chess game. He's just put in the corner and he can't move, that's all. So I have no fear.
Wow.
So you have a plan, which I'm very, very pleased to hear that. I really am. I'm excessively relieved to hear that there is a plan for South Africa. Is this, I know you've said you're the king of all the people, but is this plan for all the people? Or are you going to roll out a plan for your people and then include other people?
Oh, good question, Karin. Good question. The plan is for all legitimate South African people.
Okay, good. I get you, and I get the underlying point there as well. So my king, because I am now African American, but I am in my heart a South African. So you are my king. I'm very, very grateful that you are including everybody into your plan, because I've heard a number of plans for South Africa, but they're exclusive, not inclusive plans. It's either for the Boers or for the Afrikaners or for the Greeks or for the Portuguese or for the Zulus or for the Tswanas. It's not an inclusive plan. And because of the nature of South Africa and because of the nature of people, I believe that you have to include all peoples. So I'm very pleased to hear that. And as I understand it, I've heard your story about the court case. I've heard about the plight of your people and their hunger. I know about the plight of the white people in squatter camps. The best thing that the world can do for you, well, there are three things. We can pay attention. We can spread the word about what is going on so that more people know, and we can help financially. As I understand it, those are the three things that you need from the world the most at this stage in order to make anything work. Yes. And that to get peopleship, I've never heard a word like that, but we have to invent one for this situation. So in order to get peopleship for your people, we need to go to court and we need to pay those court expenses. And we all know that if you're taking on the government, it is a long-term, expensive job, and they can afford to wait you out because they can spend all the gazillions at their beck and call. They can print more money if they need it, whereas you have what is in your back pocket, literally. And once that's run out, well, they know they can just wait you out. So you need a horse load of money, a wagon load of money, a train load of money to sustain this business, to feed your people, to keep them housed and fed while you fight this battle.
Yes.
And unless the world knows about it, they're not going to help you. So you need those things. You need knowledge, recognition, and financial aid.
Absolutely.
Because we can send you prayers, but that's not going to pay for an attorney for you. So, you know, I believe in the power of prayer. It has helped my own family many, many times out of very difficult situations that man could not help us. But it's not going to be, cash is not going to fall out of heaven and rain down on your head, as I see things. So those are the things I understand that you need most. So if we could help you with recognition, radio and TV time, and money, then we would be doing the best thing that we can at this moment to help South Africa as a whole.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're doing such a great service. You'll not believe what an impact we will have on the way forward. Because we are so, I said to somebody this morning, I said, don't tell me you need. When you tell me you need, you tell the universe that you're begging. You need to get an alternative word for need that I would like to have. Or can I have, please? So we are changing our mindset when it comes to I need. Because you don't need anymore. I would like to have. Or can you give me, please, because these are the things I want to do with it. We've learned in our short lifespan that, and we've seen from example how the government works, that there's no accountability. There's no transparency. So PricewaterhouseCoopers, one of the leading accounting firms in the world, drew up a trust document for us. And we called it the Khoi San Cultural Movement Trust. And the beneficiaries of this trust is all the Khoi San people and all the people Those are the beneficiaries of the trust. And that trust was created in 2002 already. And some people have given money for a specific project, and that money was used for that project only. And PricewaterhouseCoopers kept our books for us, so that nobody can point the finger at us. This is how much we gave and you wasted it. The other day when I spoke, we heard that a German doctor in South Africa got 7 million rand from an American company on behalf of the Khoi San people. And I said to him, now, where's the money? He said, no, it's for the Khoi San people. I said, I'm the king. He said, but this is not, it's for a project. We understand for a project. And the money is allocated for that particular project, so I can't give it to you. I said, well, I'm custodian of the project. He said, no, no, no. The paperwork says that I'm in charge of the project. So now people are becoming wary that, oh, we're giving money for the Khoi San people, but they never get it. And this is one of our concerns, and this is why we've put in place infrastructures in South Africa and saying that when you give the monies will go into this account, and there will be people, educated people with knowledge of how to keep accountability, how that money must be transparent for the purpose that it's intended, so that nobody can point the finger at us. And this is so important in our life. I say to my son, I thank God that the Lord has allowed me to live a life where nobody can point the finger at me for the things I said and the things I've done. And I says, if we can live a life of example that others can learn from, then we can change their mindset. So when people start giving money and see what we do with the money, because they will see what we do with the money, believe me, they will see. Then the flowing of the money will come more. But we are saying, please give. Please give. Feel free to give, because the monies that you give will not be wasted. Will be for the benefit of every citizen of Africa, to help to get us on our path for the right to self-determination.
The creation of a fair, just, peaceful, sustainable world is simply not possible unless everybody is included. And Your Highness, this is one of the things that really appeals to me about what you're doing, is that it is everybody in Southern Africa that is included. And I do want to say that for the international audience who may be watching this again, and I do point this out very often, you need to understand just how important South Africa is in the global situation in terms of, first off, number of the resources that have been mined out of South Africa are responsible for the creation of roundtable groups which have behind the scenes been manipulating the course of history, politics, through things like the Trilateral Commission, through things like the Bilderberg Group. Cecil John Rhodes set up trusts specifically to fund these behind-the-scene organizations that have been manipulating the finances, that have been forcing South Africa into debt through things like the International Monetary Fund, through things like the World Bank and the international settlements. Now, we need to understand South Africa has enough resources within it to feed, house, clothe, medically care for, and educate every single person on this planet. That is how rich the country is, not just Africa. And also, because of that, South Africa has therefore been used as a political testing ground, which means that what you see happening in South Africa will soon be, or is already happening in other parts of the world, which is why it's important that the rest of the world pay attention to what's going on and step up and help now at the root and the heart of this very problem.
Mel, I absolutely agree with you. People have been blind to the situation in South Africa for way too long. And now it's rolling out all over Europe, in the USA, everywhere. That same barbarity, violence, gimme thing that we've lived with forever is happening everywhere now. And we need to put a stop to it. And the place to start is South Africa. Because if the world can see that South Africa was successful in turning this situation around and making it a people place again instead of an oligarchy place again, then the rest of the world has an example that they can follow.
Yes, absolutely, Karen. That's what it's all about, is setting that example, because we can. And hopefully, here we have the great honor of interviewing the King of Southern Africa. And you have the rightful rule of the country, but you actually come at it from a point of view that we are not, that we as people of the world are not owners. We cannot decide, and we're going to rip minerals out the earth and keep them in our pockets. We are actually stewards of the earth. We are here to help, to look after each other, to co-create, to unite on our common ground, which is the pursuit of a fair, just, peaceful, sustainable world. Feel free to jump in, Your Highness.
I listened to Tilly and I'm excited with the amount of passion that you speak about. And while you were talking, I was thinking about South Africa has passed a law called Black Economic Empowerment, BEE, or BBBE, whatever it's called. And they told the white companies that you have to give a portion of your company to a black person. And a lot of white companies closed down and lost their businesses because they just came and took. And in the beginning, I smiled because I said, now they can understand what it feels like when things are just taken away from them. That was in the beginning. My heart has changed since because I saw the damage. Because when you work hard for what you have and others come and just take it away from you, it's painful. And then now we have an opportunity categorized as black in South Africa, fall under the BEE project. But we don't qualify. As Khoi San people, we don't qualify to be part of BEE. And then they took it and they rubbed salt in our wounds when they made the Chinese black in South Africa. True as God. They made the Chinese black so that they can be part of the Black Economic Empowerment Partnership. But we, as the original people, aren't black. So you can understand the frustration in South Africa. You can understand the disillusionment of our people and the hopelessness that they feel. Because our government passes laws to their benefit only. And the man in the street never benefits from it. And we have an idea and says, why couldn't they make it community economic empowerment instead of black economic empowerment? If they had made it community economic empowerment, any business owner would have given a portion of his company and says, this is for the benefit of this community. And it then reaps the profits of it, put the money into a trust account for the community, where the elders in the community sees and manages the trust for the needs of the community. But now you have one black man that eventually becomes a billionaire in South Africa because he started with the BEE project. And he's untouchable, and he's unapproachable. Nobody can speak to him. Because you pick up the phone and you phone his office, they ask you, what do you want? And I phoned there one day because we have a medicine in South Africa that heals TB within 1 month. 27 herbs combined scientifically. And I know he has 33,000 miners working in his mines. This is a black man that owns mines where 33,000 people works in his mines. And a lot of them have TB. And I phoned his office and says, they asked me, what do you want? What do you want from him? I said, I want nothing from him. I want to give him something that he can give his people, and then we can have a business arrangement. Never got back to me because it was nothing in his pocket for him. Now, we've learned this in South Africa, that if I cannot benefit your back pocket, I want nothing to do with you. If I cannot politically enhance your future, then I want nothing to do with you. And this is what is happening in South Africa, that all those people that have knowledge, have ability, is pushed aside because they cannot add value for where South Africa is now. So the people are frustrated with life in South Africa. And a lot of them are leaving, but they can't really go because, like your heart, They are true Africans born from the soil, and they want to stay here. I heard a letter read to me by one person from a South African, and he says, "This is not my motherland. It's the land I was born out of. I belong here. I am part of this land. I can move, but I don't want to move because it's the most beautiful place on earth. It's the cradle of mankind. It's the place that God created for man. So if I am here, I've been here for a purpose. I've been put here for a purpose. If I leave, I'm not fulfilling my purpose. How can I help?" And these are the questions people are asking nowadays. How can I help? But they are so disillusioned with politics. They are so disillusioned with people with false agendas that they don't know who to trust anymore. And because I never got any airtime in South Africa, very few people know. They've heard of me, but very few people know what my heart is. And now you come and you bring this out to the world, and everybody out there that has access to Zoom and access to the internet can latch onto this and understand that they're safe when they're here. They don't have to run away. Things are going to change. Things are going to change for the betterment for all citizens of Africa.
That is a huge promise, King Cornelius, a really huge promise. And I truly think that your plan can and must work, because given the situation in South Africa right now, things are at a critical juncture. I've been watching. I lived there for most of my life, for half a century. I have been watching since I was outside of the country. Things have escalated, gotten worse at a faster and faster pace until, as an observer, you cannot keep up anymore. There's just so much going wrong in South Africa. No one person can keep on top of it. So now is the time. Definitely now, before any more damage is done, before any more lives are lost, before any more children die of starvation, TB, HIV, all the other terrible things that are happening to our children in South Africa today. Now is the hour. Today is the time to dig deep in your pockets and your wallets and hand over some of that money to save South Africa and thus the rest of the world. And that is the biggest message that I can give to anybody, because by saving South Africa, you are saving your own country ultimately.
An answer to your, when you say it's a big promise to make, Karin. My grandfather had a saying in life, and he says to me, he says, "My boy, people will say what they know and they say something. And then people will say what they know and they also say something." He says, "But you always say what you know and know what you say, because then you're saying a lot." Now, when I speak what I know, and I know what I speak. So it gives you people, your expats and all the people in South Africa, gives you the comfort that we have a plan. We're going to rectify the injustice. Every citizen in South Africa will feel that he belongs and he's part of. And that every single person will have their own right to determine their future. But within guidelines. We need to understand, we got to put guidelines down that we got to live by God's law. Firstly, it's very, very important. If you don't live by God's law, you live in anarchy. And I said to somebody, you need to understand that every person of the book is God's people. And every person belongs to God. Everything that is life belongs to God. So when we preserve life, we honor God. So our plan is that there shouldn't be murder. Our plan is that there shouldn't be killings. These are plans that we're trying to put in place. So we're not going to be a heavenly state. Forget about it. We're Africans. but we're going to be a place where we live by God's law. We respect each other. Because when you respect yourself firstly, you won't harm another person. Because you have that thing about you that I am. And this is what's so nice that I tell people, I'm First Nation Indigenous. I am, like I was told, I'm not Aboriginal, I am original. So that gives me pride. And when I say I am Khoi Khoi, I am man of men, I fear nothing other than God, my creator. Now, when people have that mindset and everybody can say, I am part of this nation, I belong here, then why do I have to take from you if I am already? And when we can instill that love and unity, not everybody's going to love. They can be sure of that. But unity, knowing that I am part of, that gives you strength to overcome anything that's going to come your way. So when, like I said earlier, when everybody comes around that says, I can and I can and I can bring, and they come, we put our hands together and we say, now, let's make the changes that's necessary. We know how to do it. We know what to do. We must just determine the when. We must just determine the when. So I'm excited about the two of you and what you're doing. My heart, an old Indian used to say, he says, my heart feels like the eagle has gripped hold of it and is trying to fly away with it. And it's right up in my chest and it's fluttering. And I'm excited because I see the passion with what you're doing and how you're doing it. And you will not realize the impact that you are having on the rest of the world for the benefit of the people in South Africa. You'll not believe it. It's big. Because some of the people listen to your radio interview with me, Karin, and they were excited. When did this happen? How did it happen? Wow, that was the response from it. And now when they see this, oh, my heart is overwhelmed. I'm truly thankful.
King Cornelius, we are grateful to you because, as I said to you after the last interview, I feel almost guilty that I didn't know the history of your people, that I hadn't studied it, that I didn't realize how badly treated you have been through the centuries. And it has been plaguing me that I, who consider myself a fairly well-read, interested in history, aware of the situation in South Africa, didn't know this. So if I, who do a lot of research on South Africa, didn't know it, how is anybody else expected to know? The man who goes to work every morning, he listens to the news for half an hour at night, and then he goes to bed and does it all again tomorrow. How will he know? Nobody's telling him. So it's kind of Mel and I, we made it our mission many years ago to draw attention to South Africa. And your cause has got such a big place in my heart that I intend to do the best I can to make people aware of that. And the fact that you, the king, the man of all men, the king of the men of men, is willing to come and talk to me, who really, I'm a grey-haired old granny who lives in a little village in Texas. I'm a nobody. And that you are willing to talk to me and explain to me the plight of your people and how you feel the great love you have for our country and our people. It is such an honor. I went to bed the other night saying, I spoke to a king and queen today. Can you believe that? How many people do that in their lifetime? And I spoke to both today. It is such a big thing. But more than that, the story of your people, the bigness of your heart, the huge driving need of your cause. If I could do more, if I could devote 24 hours a day to it, I would be willing to do that because the need is enormous. Your heart is big enough. They say your heart is like an African taxi. always room for one more. And that's kind of how you seem to me, is that there's always room for one more. And Queen Jenny as well. You are the most astonishing, loving, peaceful people it has ever been my honor to meet. And I'm so grateful to be part of this huge movement to save South Africa from these demonic, evil forces that are ruling it right now.
Thank you very much, Karen. Let me answer you quickly, Karen. I was fortunate to be groomed by my grandfather and my great-grandmother. My great-grandmother, Maria Jonker Afrikaner, died at the age of 99 and I was 13 years old. My grandfather died at the age of 85. At 83, he was still riding a bicycle with me. My father is still alive, was 80 years old. And I've been groomed from the age of 13 years old to be the king without me being aware of it. And all these stories from my ancestors being handed down from generation to generation has taken away most of the anger that my people had lived through all their life. My grandfather lived during Afrikanerdom and apartheid. My father during apartheid. I was born during the apartheid, but I was born free because of the knowledge and grooming of my grandparents and great-grandparents and my father. And a few months ago, I sat down and I realized that this is why I was born. I was born to free my people. And I don't equate myself to Moses, but I was born for that purpose, to get my people out of the yoke of captivity, the yoke of the African National Congress, because they have become a yoke for us. And there's a word that says when you unevenly yoke, you're going nowhere. And we are unequally yoked in South Africa, because the dominant animal is pulling one way and the other one is standing still and the cart is going nowhere. And this is what is happening in life in South Africa. We are not moving anywhere because we are not equally yoked. So, thank you very much, Karen.
I would just like to say, myself, I feel exactly the same as Karen, and it's an honor and a privilege for me as well to be able to take this interview and share this information with the world. And certainly myself and Karen and the rest of our network will be getting behind this cause, and we'll most certainly be passing this information as far and wide. I mean, the work doesn't stop here. It's going to be behind the scenes, letting everybody know what is truly going on, and also bringing attention to the fact that, yes, there is a plan and there is a true rightful ruler stroke sovereign of South Africa who has a heart and who understands the bigger picture, and it is all-inclusive, nobody left behind. It's everybody, and that it is all based on the creation of a better world, the better South Africa for all the people, even the expats. And hopefully, who knows where this will go, but it is about time. We're all so sick of seeing the suffering, and we're all sick of suffering. We all want the change, and it is truly an honor to be able to sit here and feel that we finally might be getting somewhere. I mean, Karen and I have spoken to so many people over the years, everybody coming with their little view of how they want to do it, but no one actually thinking about the bigger picture, including everybody. It's this little group and that little group, and that doesn't work. You know, every man for himself has never worked. We need to think of everybody, and you know, the fact that you are shows me that this is absolutely what we need to get behind. So for everybody listening, this is probably the most important interview of the many hundreds that I've ever done. So please pay attention to what is going on here today, because this is a milestone in history that is just, if we all get behind this, we can do this. We can make the difference that is needed on this planet and in South Africa right now.
Mel, from my point of view, we are literally in the process of saving the world by example. And if we cannot get people to get behind this, then I just feel they deserve what's coming their way, because I'm sorry, and that's mean and mean-spirited, but I can't feel any other way. Either get behind saving or get out the way. You know, one or the other. So Mel will be putting up a donations page very soon. Please, I beg you, all over the world, whoever you are, if you have 2 cents to rub together, please donate to saving these people, this country, and after that, your own futures. Please, please, please.
All right, we're coming up to the 10-minute left mark. I just wanted to give the King a caveat for any closing comments that you might have.
Oh, I'm so overwhelmed at this. It is a tender moment for me, knowing that I'm not the only one that cares. And it's a nice feeling when you know that you're not the only one that cares, and you're not the only one trying. And you have created a place in my heart for you, for the things that you're doing for my people. And everyone that is going to give, and I know they're going to give. And I said to Karin on the radio show, even if you feel you can't give money, send us your love. Say a prayer for us. Because when you put it into the universe, and we know about the law of attraction, give love, it vibrates back to you. So when you give it to us, we know what to do with it, because we are loving creatures. We are loving people. And we can give back much more than what you're giving to us. And we've shown it all our life. But to the 2 of you and to the people behind the scenes, I said to Karin, we have 3 words. I think we're the only language in the world that has 3 words to say thank you. If I say guns, I say thanks. If I say kaios, I say big thank you. And when I say tamako, I say thank you with deep gratitude. And to the 2 of you and everybody helping you, tamako, for what you're doing for me and my people.
It's an honor to be allowed to do this, King Cornelius. And thank you for making a place in your life and in your heart for us, because our heart for our country is so big. Our love for our people is so big. And thank you for loving them as well as your own people, because it's just overwhelming for me.
Yes, indeed. It is an honor and a privilege to be a part of this at this time. And, you know, as we said, we are going to do as much as we can to try and make this happen. So thank you very much for your time and your attention and sharing your information and story, as well as the plan that you have to create the change that is so necessary and needed at this time. It really, it's very inspiring. It's very seldom that I'm this tearful at the end of an interview, but it is really heartfelt. And for every person out there who's watching, please pay attention, watch this space. There is so much happening on this front. And we're certainly going to be following it every step of the way and giving as much support to this cause as we can on every level. So I think we're going to bring this to a conclusion. Karin, is there anything else you'd like to say?
I don't think I'm capable.
King Cornelius, is there anything else you'd like to say?
For now, that would be all. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. All right, guys. This has been another episode, yet the most epic episode of South African Genocide that we've ever produced here on Conscious Consumer Network. And we look forward to following the story and creating the change that is so desperately needed. And it starts right here with each and every person who watches this. Look into your heart. Know that this is a real thing. You know, Karin and I have spoken with so many people over the years who've had big ideas, and this is the one that we absolutely get behind and say, this is where it's at, people. This is legitimate. This has the potential to create the ripple effect around the world that is needed at this time. So You know, it's up to everybody to get involved and put your hearts, thoughts and prayers into this. We certainly will be doing so. And on that note, I'm going to end the show for tonight and say thank you very much to Your Royal Highness King Cornelius III for joining us. It is an honor and a privilege to be with you. And thank you to the Queen as well for joining us. I know she's in the background listening. And of course, a big thank you to Mr. Devon behind the scenes for helping out with facilitating this interview. And of course, my most gracious and esteemed co-host, Karin Smith. You are an absolute legend, and it is such a privilege to be able to host this space with you. Thank you so much. And we'll see you all again here on Conscious Consumer Network. That is it from me, Mel V. Take care.
If we want to change the world, we must first change the media. Mainstream media exists for the purposes of indoctrination and manipulation of public perception. The world of free and independent media is growing, and with the upsurge in information now available in the public domain, it has never been easier to access free and independent media. The exploration of this information resulted in an experimental project which would provide a fully supported space for researchers, whistleblowers, and seekers of all kinds to express themselves and educate the world. On the 1st of January 2015, Conscious Consumer Network was launched to the world. Nobody thought we would make it this far, but CCN is the longest running free and independent media network of its kind. CCN is a unique collaboration of hearts and souls, bringing you information from different perspectives to educate and inform. Since we started CCN, we have had only one desire: the pursuit of a free, fair, just, sustainable world, and this has not changed. Having overcome many challenges over the last 2 years, CCN is here to stay, and we've got great things lined up for 2017. Help keep CCN on the air by supporting the 2017 Network Support Fund.